You love your child. That is not a question. That is a fact. You do everything for them that you can, everything in your power, and even more. And precisely by doing this, you are destroying them. Not on purpose, not out of malice, but out of the purest love that exists. And the desire for them not to feel pain, for them not to struggle, for their path to be smooth and easy. And that is exactly why it is so dangerous. Because a child who has all obstacles removed never learns to walk. A child who has all problems solved for them never learns to think. A child who is given everything never learns to value anything. And 20 years later, this child, now an adult, does not know how to love, does not know how to be grateful, and does not know how to hold anything in their hands except what is handed to them. The philosopher Confucius said something that sounds harsh, but it's the truth. A parent who does everything for their child steals their soul. Today, I'm going to tell you a story. The story of a boy who had nothing and a woman who gave him everything and nearly destroyed him with it, and how she found the wisdom within herself to do something impossible. 5 lessons, one after the other. And the last one, the most painful one, is the one that touches not just children, but you. Stay with me. First, the story. The one without which everything else would just be words. On the outskirts of a large city stood a gray building. It had a nice-sounding name, a home for children left without parental care. But inside, it was freezing. Not from the temperature, but from the silence. 100 kids, 3 caretakers, tired women with vacant eyes. They didn't abuse the children, but they didn't hug them either. They just made sure everyone was fed and no one ran away. Among these children was a boy named Cody. He had big, dark eyes that expressed absolutely nothing. Cody didn't cry. He didn't laugh. He just existed. Day after day, wake up, wash with cold water, eat oatmeal, go to school, do homework, sleep, wake up again. For the first few months, he cried at night like all little kids who have been abandoned. He called for his mom. He waited for someone to come. No one came. And after a few months, Cody stopped crying. He just lay there and stared at the ceiling. His heart learned how not to feel. It wasn't a choice. It was survival. Psychologists call this attachment disorder. When a child's brain in its earliest years doesn't get a stable response, warmth, touch, or an answer to their crying, it literally rewires itself. The neural pathways that are supposed to handle trust and intimacy just don't form. Not because the child doesn't want them to, but because the brain is learning. Intimacy equals pain. There is no response. It's better not to feel. In Japanese tradition, there's a concept called amae, a deep, childlike trust in the person who cares for you. It's not just attachment, it's the foundation of a personality. It's the soil from which the ability to love and to let yourself be loved grows. Cody was growing up without this foundation directly on bare rock. He was 5 years old when a woman came to the orphanage. Her name was Sarah. She wanted to adopt a child. The caretaker showed her a few of the kids. Cody was sitting in a corner stacking blocks, silently, mechanically, one after the other. Sarah walked over to him, crouched down, and reached out to stroke his head. Cody flinched and pulled away. Sarah stopped, and instead of leaving, she stayed. She just sat next to him in silence, without touching him. A few minutes later, Cody looked at her. It was the first time since she had walked in. Sarah smiled. A month later, she took him home. Lesson 1. Why does pity destroy what love is supposed to build? Sarah did everything for Cody. She set up a beautiful room for him, bought him toys, cooked his favorite meals, even though at first he ate everything with the exact same indifference. She read him bedtime stories, dressed him, packed his backpack, and solved his math problems for him. He's suffered enough, she thought. Let him finally want for nothing. Let him not have to think about anything. Let him just rest. It's understandable. It's human. It's what any parent feels when they look at a child who has been through hell. But Cody wasn't happy. When Sarah tried to hug him, he turned to stone. He would stand like a statue until she let go. When she said, "I love you," he stayed silent. When she kissed him on the forehead before bed, he would close his eyes and just wait for her to leave. Sarah cried at night. What am I doing wrong? I give him everything. Why doesn't he respond? She was missing the most important thing. It wasn't about what she was giving. It was about what she wasn't giving. She wasn't giving him challenges. She wasn't giving him the right to make an effort. She wasn't giving him the chance to handle things on his own. In Japanese philosophy, there is a concept called jibun no michi, one's own path. The belief is that every person has a path they have to walk themselves. Not because help is a bad thing, but because a path walked for you isn't yours. And the strength you are supposed to gain by walking it simply never materializes. Sarah was carrying Cody in her arms, thinking she was helping. In reality, she was preventing him from learning how to walk. Here is what psychology tells us. A child who doesn't face difficulties doesn't develop resilience, the ability to bounce back from failure. They don't develop self-confidence because confidence is born from the experience of overcoming. They don't develop respect for themselves or for others because respect comes through effort. A child who is given everything easily doesn't learn to be grateful. They learn to demand. It's not their fault. It's the result of the system they grew up in. Practically speaking, there is one question you should ask yourself right now if you have kids. What are you currently doing for your child that they could do themselves? Not in an all-or-nothing way, just one specific thing. Packing their backpack. They could do it. Fighting their battles with friends. They could try it themselves. Picking out their clothes. They could do it. Just one thing. Tomorrow, let them do it on their own. That's the first step. But there's a second lesson, a deeper one. The one that explains why Cody still couldn't attach himself to her, despite everything Sarah was doing. Lesson 2. What happens to a child who never learned to trust? 1 year passed, then 2, then 3. Cody did well in school. He was polite, obedient, and never caused trouble for anyone. But he didn't make friends with his classmates, and he didn't go to birthday parties. When someone tried to talk to him, he would give a short answer and walk away. His teacher called Sarah in. "Your son is strange. He doesn't play with the other kids. I'm afraid he might have a problem." Sarah took Cody to a psychologist. After a long conversation, the therapist called her into his office. "Your son has an attachment disorder," he said quietly. "This happens with children who didn't receive stable care at an early age. His brain physically never learned to trust people. The neural pathways that were supposed to form in those early years just didn't form." Sarah froze. "Does that mean he'll never be able to love?" "He will," the therapist replied. "But for that to happen, you have to stop doing what you're doing. You're giving him comfort instead of giving him the right to struggle." Here's what's crucial to understand about attachment disorder. It's not a character flaw. It's an adaptation. The brain of a child who grew up without stable care learned one rule: don't get attached. Because the person you attach yourself to will either leave or they won't show up when you need them. It's safer not to feel. It's safer to be alone. It's a defense mechanism. It saved Cody in the orphanage, but now it was keeping him from actually living. And here is the paradox the therapist explained to Sarah. To help a child with attachment issues, you don't give them more comfort. You have to give them the experience of overcoming, the experience of doing something difficult entirely on their own and seeing that they survived it. Because that exact experience rebuilds what was destroyed, self-reliance. And faith in yourself is the absolute foundation for having faith in others. A child who doesn't believe they can handle things on their own can't trust anyone else, because trusting others starts with trusting yourself. In Japanese tradition, there is a story about a calligraphy master who has brought a student with a trembling hand. "Master," they told him, "this boy is afraid of the brush. His hand refuses to obey. Please help him." The master looked at the boy and did something unexpected. He handed him the heaviest brush, the most complex characters, and said, "Write." The boy cried. The characters came out crooked. His hand kept shaking. The master offered no help. A month later, the hand stopped trembling. "Why didn't you help me?" the boy asked. "Because you were asking for help from the outside," the master replied. "But the strength was inside. I needed you to find it yourself." In practical terms, if you see your child avoiding difficulties, don't rush to clear the path for them. Ask yourself, am I the one who taught them that obstacles magically disappear if you just complain loudly enough? Pick one difficulty that you will not remove today. Let them face it and watch how they handle it. But here is what most parents fail to understand. Knowing this and actually doing things differently are two entirely different things. Because when you see your child struggling, something deep inside you screams, "Help them right now." And that is exactly the scream you have to learn to hear without automatically obeying it. Lesson 3. The moment Sarah did the hardest thing a loving parent can possibly do. The therapist told her, "Stop doing it for him. Give him the right to fall and get back up on his own." Sarah walked out of the office, got into her car, and couldn't drive away for a long time. Because what he said sounded like pure cruelty. How could I stop helping a child who has already suffered so much, who was already abandoned, who already knows what real pain feels like? This right here is the trap. This exact logic. He's suffered enough. I won't give him any more pain. It creates a situation that just continues to destroy him. Because there are two types of pain. There is the pain of difficulty, which builds you up. That's the pain of effort. The pain when a task is hard and you actually have to think. The pain of getting an F and having to do it all over again. The pain of fighting with a friend and having to sort it out yourself. And then there's the pain of helplessness, which destroys you. That's the pain of not knowing what to do with your life, of not knowing how to handle adversity, of feeling completely empty inside because you've never actually experienced a real victory. A parent who removes the first kind of pain guarantees the second. Sarah pulled out of the parking lot, drove home, and the next morning she didn't pack Cody's backpack. He was surprised. He looked at her. She just smiled. "You've got this," she said. He packed his bag himself, poorly. He forgot his math notebook and got a failing grade. Sarah found out about it that evening. Everything inside her wanted to immediately email the teacher, explain the situation, and beg to have the grade changed. She didn't write the email. Cody never forgot his notebook again. In Japanese tradition, there is a concept called shinzu, trust through trials. A master who wanted to know the true character of a student wouldn't give them easy tasks. He gave them impossible ones. And he didn't watch to see how the student succeeded. He watched to see how they reacted when they failed. Because that is the exact moment you see who a person really is. Sarah started giving Cody difficult tasks, not to torture him, but so he could see for himself that he could handle it, that he was capable, that he was enough. Practically speaking, here is one major shift any parent can make today. The next time your child hits a wall and comes to you, don't fix it. Ask, how do you think we could solve this? What have you tried so far? What happens if you do it this way? Don't give answers, give questions. Questions that put the cognitive load back where it belongs, on them. But what happened next is the most important part of this story. Because that was the moment it became clear the method was working. Lesson 4. The moment that changed everything. A few months passed after Sarah changed her approach. Cody got angry. He felt resentful. He thought she had stopped loving him. Once, he even told her, "It's like you abandoned me, just like my real parents." Sarah heard those words and almost broke. But she held her ground. And then one day Sarah got genuinely sick. High fever, couldn't get out of bed, just lying there pale and weak. Cody came home from school, saw her, and stopped dead in the doorway. Something shifted inside him. Something old, almost forgotten. He walked into the kitchen, found a glass, poured some water, and brought it to her. "Thank you," she whispered. Cody stood there, looking at her, and suddenly sat on the edge of the bed. He placed his small hand over hers. Awkwardly, carefully. "Mom," he said quietly, "you're going to get better." It was the first time he had said the word "mom" in 5 years. Sarah started to cry, and Cody just sat there holding her hand, as if he were learning how to do it from scratch. Like he was doing something he was never taught to do, and he had no idea how, but he was doing it anyway. In that moment, something profound happened. Cody realized he could take care of someone else. He was capable. He was needed. It was the first feeling of its kind in his entire life. And it was only possible because Sarah stopped doing everything for him. Because he had learned how to cope. Because he had built up a reservoir of his own efforts, and now he actually had something to give. In Japanese tradition, there is a story about an old gardener and a young sapling. The gardener planted the tree in a sheltered spot, drove stakes around it, and wrapped it in netting so the wind wouldn't touch its branches. He watered it every day. He watched over every single leaf. The tree grew, but strangely. The trunk was thin, the bark was weak, and the branches were long and drooping. One day, a wise man came by, looked at the tree, and told the gardener, "Remove the stakes, take down the net, let the wind at it." The gardener was terrified. "The wind will snap it in half." "The wind is the only thing that will make the trunk strong," the wise man replied. A tree that has never bent in the wind has never learned how to hold on with its roots. The first real storm will destroy it. The gardener removed the protection. The tree bent. It swayed. A few times it looked like it was going to completely collapse, but it didn't. And a year later, the trunk was thicker, the bark was tougher, and the roots ran deep. Cody was the tree that was finally given the wind. Practically speaking, here is a question for parents. When was the last time your child did something entirely on their own, from start to finish, with zero help from you? If it's been a while, that's a red flag. Not because you're a bad parent, but because it's time to let a little wind in. But the most important lesson is the last one. The one that applies not just to kids, but to us. To those of us who grew up suffocated by overprotection, or conversely, in total isolation, and are now carrying the weight of what we were never given. Lesson 5. What do you do if you grew up without the things you needed? 10 more years passed. Cody grew up, graduated high school, got into college, and made friends. Not many, but real ones. He learned how to hug his mom. He learned how to say thank you. He learned how to smile when he was happy. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. It was slow and painful, but he learned. One evening, they were sitting in the kitchen drinking tea. "Mom," Cody said, "do you remember when you stopped doing everything for me? Back then, I thought you were abandoning me just like my real mom did." Sarah stayed silent. "But now I understand you weren't abandoning me. You were giving me what the orphanage never gave me, not comfort. You gave me the chance to become a person." He looked at her. "I didn't love you when you pitied me. I started respecting you when you believed I could handle it myself." He squeezed her hand. "Thank you for not giving up, for giving me the right to struggle. Without that, I would have stayed empty inside." This is the key to everything. Respect isn't born from pity. Respect is born from belief. From someone looking at you and saying, "You can do this." Not doing it for you, but actually trusting that you will get it done. And this exact same lesson applies to us. Many of us grew up in less than ideal conditions. Some with helicopter parents who did way too much and wouldn't let us breathe. Some with parents who were barely there. Some, like Cody, with no parents at all. And we carry within us the echoes of what we were never given. Insecurity, trust issues, a fear of intimacy, the habit of always waiting for someone to save us, or, conversely, refusing to ever ask for help. And here's what you have to understand. You are not broken. What you are carrying is an adaptation. It's the armor that helped you survive the environment you grew up in. It was the absolute brilliance of your childhood brain, even if it's holding you back right now. But adaptations can be overwritten. An attachment disorder is not a life sentence. Insecurity isn't forever. Fear of intimacy isn't forever. You can learn self-reliance, even if no one ever taught you how. You can learn to trust, even if you've been betrayed. You can learn to love, even if you never experienced love yourself. Because inside every single one of us, there is a dormant strength that no one ever bothered to wake up. And it is waiting. In the Japanese Zen tradition, there's a parable about the hidden fire. A traveler was walking through the mountains on a freezing night. His firewood was wet, and he couldn't get a spark to catch. He was freezing to death. A wise man happened to be passing by. "Help me start a fire," the traveler begged. The wise man crouched down, looked at the wood, and then at the traveler. "You already have the fire," he said. "It's inside you. It's just buried under a layer of dampness. You just have to clear away the dampness, and it will ignite on its own." The wise man didn't hand the traveler a flame. He showed him how to remove the obstacles blocking the fire that was already there. That is exactly the job of a good parent. Not to light the fire inside your child, but to remove the things stopping their own fire from roaring to life. And that is the exact job every single one of us has toward ourselves. To find our own fire, clear away the debris covering it, and let it burn. Practically speaking, here is a question you should ask yourself today. What is happening in your life right now that you are allowing someone else to handle for you? Not because you can't do it, but because you're used to it, or because you're scared. Take one thing back. Do it yourself. That is the first ember that will ignite all the rest. Now, let's tie it all together. 5 lessons. 5 truths about the love that builds and the love that destroys. Number 1. Pity is not love. Pity removes obstacles and strips away strength. Love believes the child can handle it and gives them the opportunity to prove it. Number 2. Attachment disorder is not a defect. It's an adaptation that kept you safe, and it can be rewired through the experience of overcoming and through the unwavering belief of someone standing by your side. Number 3. The hardest thing a loving parent can ever do is refuse to help. Not because they don't care, but because they love them enough to endure watching them struggle so they can learn to endure the struggle themselves. Number 4. Respect isn't born from comfort. It's born from the experience of overcoming. A child who handles something on their own respects themselves, and they start to respect the people who believed they could handle it. Number 5. If you grew up without what you needed, you are not broken. You adapted, and now you can make a different choice. Because the strength that was never woken up didn't just vanish. It's waiting. Confucius said, "A parent who does everything for their child steals their soul." Now, after hearing this story, you understand exactly what he meant. Not because he was cruel, but because he understood something fundamental about human nature. The soul grows through effort, through overcoming, through that singular moment when things were incredibly hard and you pulled through anyway. You can't just hand that to someone. You can't buy it. You can't do it for your child. You can only create the environment where it happens, and then believe, be patient, and stay out of the way. That is what true love is. It's not sacrifice, it's wisdom. Let me know in the comments, was there something in your life that was handed to you instead of giving you the right to do it yourself? Or, conversely, was there a moment when someone truly believed you could handle it, and that belief changed everything? Drop a story down there, short or long. I read every single comment, always. Hit the like button if today you finally saw the difference between pity and love, between comfort and wisdom, between giving things and giving belief. Make sure to subscribe. We've got a lot more lessons ahead on how to raise actual human beings and how to become one yourself. I'll see you down the road. Before we dive in, please understand that the story shared today is purely for educational purposes, meant to spark deep reflection rather than serve as professional advice. And I assume no legal liability for how you choose to apply these concepts in your own life. Hearing this story deeply moves me because it touches on our overwhelming human desire to protect the people we love from experiencing any pain. Yet looking at Cody's journey, I realize that true love is not about creating a flawless, bubble-wrapped existence for those we care about. It is about having the terrifying courage to step back and let the storm hit, knowing that the wind is exactly what builds unbreakable roots. We often confuse pity with compassion, rushing in to rescue our loved ones while inadvertently stealing their opportunity to discover their own inner strength. The profound lesson here is that resilience cannot be gifted. It must be forged in the quiet, messy moments of falling down and figuring out how to stand back up. When we remove every obstacle for someone, we are quietly telling them that we do not believe they are capable of surviving the world on their own. By shifting our approach to offering unwavering belief rather than a free ride, we give them the ultimate gift of self-reliance and self-worth. This applies just as much to the child within ourselves, who might still be waiting for a savior to fix our broken pieces. I see now that our deepest wounds and insecurities are not permanent life sentences, but simply heavy armor we wore to survive our past. We hold the power to unburden ourselves, to stop waiting for rescue, and to tackle that one hard thing we have been avoiding. Every time we choose to push through the discomfort of effort, rather than succumbing to the numbness of helplessness, we reclaim a piece of our soul. It is incredibly liberating to accept that struggling is not a sign of failure, but rather the very mechanism of human growth. If we can learn to trust the painful yet beautiful process of overcoming, we will foster a life built on mutual respect and genuine, grounded confidence. Let us stop clearing the path for those we cherish, and instead, let us stand proudly by their side as they learn to clear it themselves. Ultimately, you already possess the fire inside you. All you need to do is clear away the damp wood and let it burn brilliantly.